there's a lot of stuff that I'd say, even though I'm a fairly like straightforward person in terms of being able to talk to people, I still definitely think there's things I'm uncomfortable talking about, and I don't necessarily like delving into the news too much, but I feel like this one topic that I recently saw the head make waves in the headlines was worth at least talking about, and has to do with the Olympics. And one of the things that's really interesting in terms of just I just made a video about sleep right before this, and I I if that one should be out before this, so if you didn't see that, check that out if you're interested. But one of the things with having a lack of sleep that's interesting for someone like me who doesn't do any drugs or doesn't drink or anything like that is just actually having something that still changes your inhibitions. So, like being able to like stay up for a really long time and then not go to sleep is a great way to start making bad decisions if you're someone who just doesn't partake in the normal activities that would allow that to happen, right? And the funny thing is then it makes it easier for me to come up to this camera and talk into it about things that are a little less comfortable for me. But getting back to the Olympics point, because now it's late at night, so inhibitions lowered, ready to talk about it. I think that I don't think it's really a surprise that, since like the 1960s, really, it's kind of been a pretty obvious thing in the U.S. where it's like, I don't feel like there's many in the general population that are supporting any kind of war. So, I mean, like, that's not really a thing that's very, surprising, I guess. But it's interesting how people look at things. So I'm taking a course right now in college that is literally about ancient Greece and Roman practices in terms of sports and the sports that they created, they participated in, that were found in their cultures, and how they related to everything having to do with their cultures. And one thing that I really wasn't surprised about with the Olympics was that the Olympics actually had like a very important thing while they occurred in ancient Greece, and not surprisingly, and still relatively common, I think, conceptually today, is like you're not going to have fighting at the Olympics. So even if you're at war with somebody, like two countries are at war, if they're attending the Olympics, they are not going to fight each other at the war. And I think thinking about that is very important in terms of thinking about it as a uniting front. And I think that another thing to consider is like humans, especially men, probably have some sort of element within them that's like, oh yeah, we want some sort of rough and tumble or like fighting style thing simulating like some sort of battle, right? Just because that's like somewhat a part of there being like a competitive drive between people. And we as people love to see that. And I think that sport can act in a way that really mimics a lot of the things that could come from war, like strong bonds, camaraderie, teamwork, those types of things, but obviously not have the detrimental effects that an actual war can have. And that's what you want. That's why sport is so important to our culture, because it brings people together, and even if they're groups combating each other, the results are never as negative as an actual war, right? And what's interesting is getting to the actual news point of this that I was referring to. The committee, I guess, I'm not sure what the committee is, but the committee decided that pretty sure Russia and maybe another country is getting barred from the next Olympics that are taking place because of the war that they're fighting against Ukraine. Now, there's nothing really to say about whether it's good or bad, because generally speaking, it's pretty simple in my book. War's just bad. So if it's taking place, it's bad in general. But I think it's a really interesting thing to just bar them from the Olympics. Like, it's something that makes sense. I just always feel like sports are such a uniting thing, like I said, and these, back in ancient Greece, these people would stop wars to intentionally be able to participate in the Olympics and not break any rules pertaining to the Olympics, because they don't want the Olympic results to be affected by something that they did that was illegal during the time of suspended warfare. And it's like, okay, well, talking about suspended warfare may or may not be an important thing, because it's like, okay, but if they're going to continue the war after they are done in the next Olympics that they're barred from, what's the point? Well, the point is just being able to act like in a united manner to get along with somebody. I mean, just think about it in terms of an individual basis, where it's like, hey, Tom, do you want to play with me? And Tom's like having a fight with a kid named Ricky or something, and it's like, you got another kid named Bob, who Bob's already playing with me, and it's like, Tom's like, sure, and it's like, okay, Tom, but you can't participate because you fought with Ricky, and whatever, we can invite Ricky to play too, but it's like, actually then, just continuing to, isolate somebody who's already being somewhat aggressive and like creating a further combatant in that sense doesn't seem to make sense with me. That child that I'm making up is just going to continue, is already feeling some sort of way, feeling under attack in some sort of way, and they're already feeling slightly isolated, probably. That's probably the case, considering they're attacking another one. Then how would enforcing their isolation actually help the issue of them feeling so isolated? And I just don't know if actually barring a country from the Olympics, given the past precedent, as well as just that concept of how sports can be unifying. They can connect people in a way to simulate warfare without having the negative effects of warfare and everything else. Sorry about that notification. And everything else that goes with them. I just think it's an interesting decision, and one I was surprised to see. Maybe actually not surprised to see, but I thought it was worth discussing the decision, because I don't know if people that are acting as aggressors should always just be looked at as combatants and only to be punished for everything they've done wrongly. Because I think even if you look at the modern day with how parents treat their children, there's a certain level of compassion that has to be enforced along with slight punishment to actually make progress with somebody. And I just think that that's an important thing to think about. So, if you hadn't thought about that, maybe it piqued your interest. Maybe it didn't. Maybe you already had that thought. But thanks for watching. Have a good rest of your day.